Hello everyone, my name is Barbara and welcome to my Excel channel. Today we're going to look at heat maps in Excel. What are they, what are they used for, and actually how to create them. So let's get started. So you might be thinking, well, what are heat maps? They're a graphical representation of your data just using a colour-coded system, and it helps visualising your data in a more meaningful way so you could communicate better to an audience any trends in your data. Let's take a look at an example first of all. So I've got some sales figures for north, south, east and west areas from January to June. Looks a bit like just a whole bunch of numbers, but if we were to put a heat map on it, like this already, you can see a few trends in the data. You can see that the east is perhaps underperforming overall without even looking at the total column, and the south is generally doing better. North had a bit of an issue in March and April, but it looks like they're recovering somewhat. So you can see that it really does help when you're visualizing or communicating your data to an audience. So how do we create them? Well, it's really easy. We actually use conditional formatting. Don't know where conditional formatting is. If you just go to the Home tab and you go to the Styles group, and if you select conditional formatting, and you can go to color scales, and this is where we see the heat maps. So if you just hover over it, the first one you see is green, yellow, red, or red, yellow, green, or red, amber, green. And it's the typical ragging that businesses use: red, amber, green, red being worst performing, green being best performing. And that's the one that I used just in the example before. If you wanted to switch it around the opposite way, that you would have red being the best performing, yellow somewhere in the middle, and green the worst, choose that one. What you do is you select the data that you want to rag or create a heat map on, conditional formatting, and then that's it. So with this heat map, all of these values are in relation to each other, are mapped against each other. So one thing to be careful of is if you apply the conditional formatting to your whole data set, let's just do that and include the total column, you'll see how that changes. You can see that that changes because the total in this instant obviously has the highest value sales. So if you just want to look at the January for north, south, east and west, you just need to make sure that you only format those 4 cells. So let's just clear off our formatting and let's select that individually. And we can see south is easily the highest performing for that month. And if you wanted to do that individually, you can use the format painter, just double click, and then you can apply that same formatting to each of the months. So now our conditional formatting is only looking at those individual areas each month. So if we were to revert back to looking at all those 24 cells, if I just hover over, you can see there that changing again. Just something to bear in mind when you're applying your heat map. Is it going to be for some cells individually or a smaller group of cells, or is it going to be the whole data set? So that's not the end for heat maps. So we can take this a little step further, and what we can do is we can make a heat map with a custom color scale. So what we could say is every cell that has less than 3,000 euros in sales, I want that to be same color red, and everything above 4,000 green, and then everything in between can be the scale. So we can clearly identify any sales that are less than 3,000 euros. So what we do is select the same cells, go to conditional formatting, and then more rules. And if we go to edit the rule description, we still want a 3 color scale, and where we fill in the minimum is here. We want to say any value or any number that is less than 3,000, colour it red. And then any number over 4,000, colour it green. And let's give a midpoint here of 3,500. Okay, you can see that that gives us a very different heat map. So we can clearly see any sales that are below that threshold of 2,000. We can see everything above 4,000, and then around our midpoint, we can see that January in East was a little bit below the midpoint. March in South was a little bit above. It just gives you a very different flavour of the data, and the green sales really stick out. That's another way we can customise these heat maps. Really quickly, really simply. So if we get some more sales data in, do we have to extend the formatting? Can we make this a bit more automated. If we're going to have the rest of the year's sales, we can. What we can do is we can just convert that range of cells into an Excel table by hitting Control-A, Control-T, confirm that your table has headers, which are our months of the year, hit OK. We now have a data table. If we insert a new column, and let's just say we've had a really good July, let's say June plus €5,000, automatically that follows the same rules as our original heat map. So that makes your heat map dynamic, which is quite handy. So let's just fill down this table, and let's actually just say that we only had €5 worth of sales in July. Hit that again, it follows our heat map rules. So that's how we create heat maps in Excel. They're really easy to do with conditional formatting. So it's the Home tab, conditional formatting. Have a go, play around with it. Really useful for communicating trends in your data that you probably wouldn't see immediately. Now this is a really small data set, but you can imagine if you had a whole spreadsheet full of figures, a quick application of a heat map really does help focus. Applying a quick heat map really does help to get a view of a trend in any of your data, which is seen in this example. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'll leave a link below to some of my other Excel charting videos in the description, and I'll see you next time for another Excel video.